Hey guys, welcome to the party. We are the Weekend Rock Stars. This is a podcast for upcoming musicians and artists. We're here to give you all the tips, tricks and licks to get you started on your musical journey. As always, am Scott Freeman, and with me is the awesome Billy drinking his Guinness Deadman. How you doing, Billy?
Hello. I'm very well, thank you.
Awesome stuff. So in this podcast, we look every week to focus in on a certain topic to do with music, and this week we want to hone in on how to get gigs. And obviously, it's an odd time, you could say, to be looking at this topic because we're in the middle of coronavirus, and so no one's really gigging at the moment. However, things are starting to warm up in that camp, and I know there's going to be people out there during lockdown over these last 3 months or so who've picked up guitar for the first time, who've started writing songs for the first time, who are excited that when this ends, they're finally going to get out, they're finally going to start gigging, and so this is for you guys, and this is for everyone who wants to get out there and start gigging, or has been gigging for a while and needs some new tips on how to get further with it. So yeah, we're going to get into it today. So I'm going to ask Billy, how do you get gigs?
How do I get gigs, Scott? Well, that's a very good question. So a little bit of background, I think. I'm in two different bands at the moment. I'm in an indie rock band and I'm in a blues rock band. So both bands have different approaches, I think, when it comes to getting gigs. For the blues rock band, obviously, actually, let me dial it back a bit, actually, because the different genres, obviously, you're going to want, first of all, you're going to want to research the types of venues and types of promoters out there for the music that you're playing. So, for example, the blues rock band, we go looking for those blues promoters that are out there.
Yeah,
we're not going to obviously go after the indie rock promoters. Sometimes you can get the odd pub gigs which do any sort of music, but obviously, I think the key there is to look at your genre of music and then look for those promoters. So with the blues promoters, we will then send them a nice email usually, or we'll send them a nice friend request on the old Facebooks if you find them on there, and yeah, basically get a conversation going with them to see what's going on, see if there's any space on gigs that are upcoming with them. So with the blues scene in particular, there's always support slots there for a band like ourselves who are just sort of starting out. The band's called Brave Rival, if you want to check them out. But then on the other hand, we've got my other band, Fuzzwalker, which is an indie rock band, and the indie venues, the grassroots venues, are more suited to that sort of sound, and they're totally different kind of gigs, really. So again, it's about researching the promoters, and we'll send them a nice email saying, have you got any gigs coming up that, you know, showcases for a band of our sort of size on the musical ladder, as it is. And usually, actually, you know what, quite similar with both bands, is that on the email you'll send them links to the music, obviously, and links to information on the band. So both bands, we've actually made nice press kits for them on our website, so we link to the promoters to that. And it's sort of about selling yourselves to the promoter and what you can bring to the gig itself. And if you have gigged already and you've got any live footage that is good of yourselves, that's also quite handy. But I think that is one of the best ways that we get gigs, is by going directly to the promoters and selling ourselves to them, and then hopefully getting a response back asking for a show. There are other ways, which I'll get into maybe in a bit, but I just want to know how you go about getting your gigs, Scott Freeman.
Okay, so for me, as a solo acoustic act, occasionally I'll gig with a backing band, but for the majority of the year I'm gigging as a solo act. I will often use Facebook as a tool. I'll scroll through Facebook and often look at the Facebook pages of those of music venues, small music venues. I'm not looking at big concert halls, big festivals or anything. I'm looking for stuff that's nearby, a couple of miles away, so I'm not going to have to drive a long way. I look for those small music venues, and I look at the about page on Facebook. I look at their about page, and usually there's some information there about the kind of bands they have on, and how to get in contact with them about booking. And so sometimes they'll want you to send them a message on Facebook, and then sometimes they'll want you to send them an email. And so, yeah, you send them a message on Facebook or an email and say, hey, my name is Scott Freeman. I'm an acoustic artist based out of Winchester, or now Shepperton, and I'm really interested in playing at your venue. I'm nearby. I can bring X amount of people.
Yeah.
They
always want to know how many people you can bring.
That's, I try to bring that up early in conversations with them to let them know, so I get a response, And so I'll say, I can bring X amount of people. Here's some video footage of me playing, and I've got some live footage, but a lot of the time I do a lot of stuff here in the studio, so I'll send them video footage from home that's of decent quality, so they can get a feel for what my act is like, and then go about it like that. So that's how I often do it. I'll get in contact with them. Of course, there's also, once you've played a gig, say, a venue I play in Salisbury a lot, there's a venue there, I'll play there, and then afterwards you'll get off and you'll talk to the promoter, you'll talk to the guy who owns the pub, who booked you, and you'll say, I'll be really cool to play a gig again. And then, for all you know, I've got another gig booked before I've walked out the door. I try to do that as much as possible, because I want to know if I've played a good gig there, that I'm coming back, and that I'm going to do that. Because sometimes emails can be ignored, Facebook messages can be ignored. Once I've got a foot in the door, I want to try and book the gigs verbally if I can, and just boom, get them like that.
That's a very good point, actually. The follow-up gig, as it were. Because once you've played a gig and you've done a great show, it's what I usually do is obviously do a follow-up email to try and get that next gig with them. What would you say is the perfect space of time between shows? Like, you don't want to overdo it in the same venue. Say, like, imagine you're playing the same place every week. They would get bored of you.
They would get bored of you.
What would you say is the perfect space of time between gigs?
It's tricky, because I've played, say I've played the Winchester Gate in Salisbury, the Railway in Winchester, and I've played the White Hart in Basingstoke and the London Stone in Staines, and I've done, across the space of time, several shows at those venues across just a couple of weeks. Sometimes, because they'll like what I do, people like it, so they'll have me back. And that'll, sometimes you'll get that pattern going on for a little while, and then I'll go, actually, we've had you on a lot recently, so let's space it out. So usually I look for a 2-month gap.
I was going to say that 2 months is good amount. 2 months
good. If you're playing lots of different venues, then maybe slightly longer, because you've got other places to play. But you'd say 2 months as well?
Yeah, I think a 2-month gap is the perfect sort of amount of time, because it gives you time to build up to that next gig and promote it. Because one thing that I think that promoters want to see, in terms of when it comes to selling yourself to them, at all venues, is the fact that you're putting the work in when it comes to promoting the gig. And that, that's going to be your own sort of marketing online, and word of mouth. So Facebook posts, Twitter, all the social medias, of course, is very important with that. I kind of want to go back to one point you said, Scott, about your X number of people that you bring. Now, what would we say to Mr. Joe Bloggs, right? He's picked up the guitar for the first time. He's written a few songs. He's written a few ditties there. And he's never played a show ever. He doesn't have a fan base yet. How many people can he bring?
Oh, that's tricky. If someone's a singer-songwriter type, they're a solo act, a bit like me, I'd say before you start gigging properly, you want to play a few open mic slots, you know, at venues, because there's no negotiation there over prices, you know, or anything. You know, you kind of just show up and play, and you can build a bit of confidence there. Before you start gigging. And a lot of the time the big venues these days have open mic nights, so they can get to know you and get to know your act first. So I would, you know, if it's a solo act, you know, or a duo, I'd say do some open mics first, get some live experience. However, if you want to forgo that and just jump straight into gigging properly, you know, I'd say bring 10 people to your first show. Bring 10 people, you know, and it's probably going to be friends and family. You don't have any fans yet, you know, so you just want to bring them along. And I think that's a decent number, you know. If you're just starting out, you know, that's probably the amount you can bring. Some people might be able to bring 20. 20 is obviously better. Yeah. Anything beyond that is bonus, I think. But I think 10's a doable number. Kind of depends how social you are as well. Yeah. You know, like how many people you know. I mean, that gets into a whole other area, doesn't it?
I think as well, it obviously coming from a band perspective, if you're a new band and you've never played a gig before, but you've landed, you want to land that first gig.
Yeah.
I don't think it's unreasonable, as you say, like 10 people, but in a band situation, it should be 10 people per band member, really.
Yeah.
You know, even if you've got to bring your mum, dad, sister, and all your mates from school. Obviously, you got situations where bands have all the same friendship groups, so that makes it a bit trickier, I guess. But I think at the end of the day, you got to look at it. How many people can you bring? You got to max out that many people.
Yeah,
and that's where the spacing comes so important as well for that next gig. Because if you're doing it too quickly afterwards, all those same people might not come again. So it's a tricky balance.
That's true. Like, how much are you going to ask of someone? Like, you've just played a gig and brought out your entire family, extended family, or your co-workers or your mates from uni, whatever. And then you're like, 2 weeks from now, I'm playing at the same place. Well, it's just, they've just had that experience of watching you in that space. They're not going to want to come see you again straight away. So, yeah, some space is good.
Yeah.
Yeah,
I think so. Yeah, I think the space thing is definitely ideal. But then you got, like, I think the next level up from all this would then be like your regular sort of gigging in various different places. Yeah. Right. And how do you get gigs in places you've never been before? Because then once you've done a few gigs, you then got evidence of your appeal. But then bringing people to another place is a whole different ball game, or even just getting people to come from that other place. Yeah, and I think that's where you got to kind of look into your advertising with people in that new area. I'm trying to think of anything that I've done in the past. I mean, we have tried doing like Facebook adverts for Fuzzwalker and stuff, which have had not the most amazing success, I'll be honest. Yeah. But I have heard of bands do like really, really good numbers based on what they've advertised. Yeah. But they probably spent way more than what I was budgeting for it, I guess. Yeah. So, yeah.
That's the tricky thing, isn't it? When you want to go out of town. Yeah. And a lot of places these days, I find, you might find as well, don't have a regular crowd. You know, a lot of these places are just empty rooms, and they expect you to fill it with not only sound but people. And if you're not from that city, then that can be a bit tricky. Yeah. That's
an interesting thing, actually. Going back to the obviously being in two bands, I see it from two different sides of that, really, because a lot of the indie venues and that don't have that regular crowd, but the blues clubs, being clubs, I guess they do. Like they literally have regular like gigs, like usually either once or twice a month, maybe even once a week, some of them. And they have the same people go to them every time. And they have like a mailing list that they mail out to all the people that come, and they're regularly informed on what's coming through. So in that way, it's almost different, because the promoter is usually just one person. that is running these clubs.
Yeah.
And they're like a trusted individual in that community of the blues scene. And there's different pockets of that all over the country.
Yeah.
Of these different clubs. And because of that, like, you get a gig with them, even if you're just supporting the established act that's already touring.
Yeah.
You're pretty much guaranteed a crowd, which is great for an upcoming band. Makes it a bit easier.
Yeah.
Then you just basically got to be good. Like,
yeah.
And then you're pretty much in, you know?
So, moral of the story is join a blues band.
I think so. That might be the best way for some people, but unless you don't want to be in a blues band, I guess.
Yeah. But I mean, like we've said it before in conversation. There's certain genres of music today, right now in 2020, that just make life easier for you if you're in that scene. I think blues is one of them. I think metal actually is one of them as well.
Metal. The scene is so supportive of metal bands, so supportive. I think there is this, like, I don't want to like get too up my own arse, but there is certainly this element to the indie scene where it can be a little pretentious.
Yeah, in what way?
There's just some pretentious people out there just being. Every musician has an ego. Yeah. And I think every artist has an ego, and that's fair enough. Like that's just part and parcel of it, right? Mm-hmm. But I do think in the indie scene there can be a bit of pretentiousness with certain elements of, I don't know, like you come across it when you're gigging other bands and stuff. I don't want to name any names, but you know you do come across some element of that, like, oh, I'm too cool for you, man, too cool for you, like, yeah. But going back to like the whole topic of getting gigs, this is something I want to talk to you, Scott. What's, like, obviously we've talked a bit about the proactiveness way of getting gigs, right? Mm-hmm. Like all that, but what's some of the weird ways you've got gigs?
Weird ways.
I've got some. I'm keen to hear what are some of the weird ways you have got gigs.
Okay, right. So occasionally you'll just have random people you've never met before. Already, it's like, just random people get in contact and message you, and sometimes they've found you online. Sometimes they've seen you at a gig, but you didn't meet them at the gig. But they're like, I was at that gig in Kingston, and I saw you play. For it. Yeah, and oh my word, the one gig, I was asked. I need to give a straight face when I say this. There was one gig where I was asked to play at a body painting festival.
What?
You heard of body painting?
Yeah, that's where naked people cover themselves in paint.
Yeah, they have other people paint them. I don't know if it's a sexual thing.
Did you get painted?
Well, I didn't get the gig in the end. I got the first email, but the second one went into spam. Probably because the content of the email had the word body and painting. So I never got the gig, but I was really scared about that gig. I was like, are they gonna like put me in between like two people who are just naked and being painted? What if I'm energetic? What if I just crash into them? Will they tumble to the floor like Colosseums?
I so wish you got this gig.
Yeah. So yes, occasionally just random people will message and be like, hey, I've got a gig for you. And I had a gig in Aldershot a few years ago where a guy I knew who used to put on gigs in Fleet messaged me saying, hey, I now work at a pub, I want you to come play this gig. And I go, yeah, okay. And I showed up and I played the first song, and a manager came out, tapped me on the shoulder, says, can I speak to you out back? And I go, yeah, okay. And I had some fans there, like people come along to see me, and I was like, I'll be back in a sec. And I went back into the office with him, and he goes, okay, who are you? And I was like, I'm Scott Freeman, I'm an acoustic act, I'm doing covers for you, maybe a couple originals. Gino booked me, and he goes, Gino doesn't work here anymore. And I was like, pardon? And so this guy had booked me for this gig, apparently like left. you know,
Wow.
and didn't tell anyone that was coming to play. And so this guy had to pay me for a gig he had no idea was happening.
Oh, I'm glad he paid you then.
I'm glad he paid me, but he was just like, I'm not sure if the crowd are going to like you. I'm not sure if you're their style. So he's like, listen, play a few more tracks. If they don't like it, I'll pay you half of it and I'll let you go. But I wasn't having that. I said, look, no, I've travelled a long way to get here. You're going to pay me the full thing in 5 songs' time if you don't like me. And so he just let me play all night.
Yeah.
And I got a lot of heckles. So that was a weird one. I mean, there's been a whole bunch. I'm trying to think of it. Are there any of yours that have been booked in very strange ways or strange circumstances?
One of the stranger ones was myself and the singer of Fuzzwalker, Mr. Matt Brook. We were busking just bass and acoustic guitar in the middle of Staines High Street.
Yeah.
This was a few years ago, and we're just busking, playing some Oasis stuff and other covers, and general busking kind of vibe.
Yeah.
Which wasn't as good as when we have Donna there, the drummer, doing some cajon.
Yeah.
But anyway, there we were. It was kind of raining as well. I'm setting the scene here, aren't I? And
I like it.
And I'm taking you on a walk right now, and this fella walks past, and he says, "Oh man, you guys are great! Like, really digging this vibe." And, we got chatting to him anyway, and like told him we're in a band and that, and he said that his friend was booking a gig in Kingston at the Fighting Cocks. And he said, "Oh, I'm going to tell him about you guys," and from there we got invited to play this guy's little day festival he was putting on at the Fighting Cocks.
Yeah.
Called Hazfest, H-A-Z Fest. Hazfest. Okay. And yeah, it was a good night of half a day, I guess, of punk, indie, and rock and that. And we were on the bill, and one of the weird things about the gig was he served pizza to everyone that came in as well.
What kind of pizza are we talking about? You piqued my interest.
I believe it was a mixture. There was definitely pepperoni. It wasn't a branded like Domino's or anything. It was some random. You get those random pizza places like Papa Tony's or something.
Papa Tony's.
Yeah, like some random.
Papa
pizza.
John's younger, more incompetent brother.
Yeah, it's not definitely not a chain.
Yeah.
But they usually taste quite good anyway.
Yeah.
Oh, speaking of Papa John, that in Feltham there's a pizza restaurant or just takeaway just called Papa's.
Yeah.
It's not Papa John's.
It's just Papa's.
Just Papa's.
Anyways,
another weird way that we've got gigs in the past. It definitely comes from sometimes the old saying, "It's who you know."
Yeah.
Drummer in both my bands is a lovely lady called Donna Peters, and so Donna's husband, he is a sound engineer for gigs. So through that, he has obviously networked loads, and he does loads of work for different people and stuff. And through that is how for who he knew, and basically he was doing the sound engineer and roadie. He was being the roadie for Southside Johnny and the Asbury Jukes, who are a very famous band from New Jersey in America, and they were coming over here on a tour, and because of that, and because of his association with them, knowing their management and their people, he managed to get my old band support slots for them, and we got to play massive venues. We got to play the Shepherd's Bush Empire.
Yes, we will talk about that in a bit. Yeah.
So that a weird gig that we got from a weird situation. It's just literally who you know. They can come from all sorts of places, really. I guess gigs, but I think proactiveness and always looking for opportunities is the key, really. And doing your research. Yeah.
So we've mentioned, doing research online. So, where would you start? Would you start looking on Facebook, or would you go to Google and start typing something in? And if so, what would you type in?
I think Facebook is a good place to start, but also Googling. I would go to Google, right, and I would just put in like music venues in such and such area.
Yeah.
You would find those venues, and then usually they should hopefully have a website. Not all of them do, because some of them just for some reason don't.
Okay, so if they don't have a website, what do you do
then,
from there?
There you then see if they've got social media. So if they have social media, then usually you'll find on their like Facebook, they'll have the contact us page on that.
Yeah.
And from there, you can even message the page, or they'll have an email on there that you can message. So, and in terms of doing research, from there you can obviously see the venues that are near you, and then going by looking at the gigs they put on, you can tell what sort of music they like, what sort of music they put on generally. You have your like bigger grassroots venues. So obviously this is going out to the world, but for us living in leafy Surrey, we've got venues near us. So some of you probably will never have heard of these venues. Yeah. But you got venues like the Boiler Room in Guildford, or the Horn in St Albans, and they cater for that grassroots music. And they do tend to put on a mixture of everything that is up and coming in the grassroots scene. But they also do tend, if you look through their history, there's obviously going to be a way more of a slant to that indie alternative rock kind of vibe that's coming through, doing tours across the country sort of thing. But then obviously going back to my like blues background, my blues band, it's just, you could Google blues clubs in this area, and you'll find them. They're usually based in the old man's social clubs of places and stuff, and it's just about looking for the right kind of promoters and what they put on. You got to look at what gigs they put on, basically the history.
So if you're looking to get into blues, there's a whole scene in the UK towards that's worth looking into. I can definitely say from my experience, the open mic scene is kind of similar. Because definitely. the open mic scene, there's always a crowd, because half of that crowd will be made up of musicians, and the other half will be people they've brought along / people who just go along for the night. And so there's always a crowd to play to, hence why I mentioned early on in the podcast that it's a good place to cut your teeth as an artist, because there's usually always a crowd at an open mic night, especially one that's established, and it's not hard to get on the bill. So wrapping up the booking a gig aspect of it, so you can go onto Google, and you go onto Google and you say blues venues in so-and-so place, and that could lead to a website or a Facebook page, social media channel, and from there you find contact details, and you send a message. You say, hey, I'm so-and-so, I play this type of music, I can bring X amount of people to the show, I'm from this area, here's a video of me playing. That's a good way of starting out.
You know what, Scott, another thing that I just remembered that I do, something that I think also works, is if you notice they've got a gig coming up, right, with a band that you admire, or something that's definitely in the right genre for you, someone that's obviously higher up the chain than you, if you message the promoter and say, look, I see you got such and such playing on this date, can we support them? And you know what, maybe 8 or 9 times out of 10, I usually get a positive response back for that, because I've done the research. I've identified an act that I think we would go well with, and I think it just helps the promoter in a way, because then they got a band that's keen to do the gig with them, with that particular act. And sometimes if the band's too big, they have to go through the agent or whoever their management is, and that can be a bit of a brick wall. But when that happens, generally the promoter still wants to help you and give you a different date. So it's still an avenue to get in a gig with that particular promoter or venue.
Yeah, that's very true. That's good advice. If you're you've been gigging for a little while and you want to step up and play maybe to some new crowds, as Billy says, get on the bill with a more established band that's coming to town. Look at who's coming up in a couple of months, and they might not have support acts yet. Get in contact with the promoter through the Facebook page or through the website, and get in contact with them, because that's a good way to do it. I haven't actually done a lot of that over the years, because I don't know, I end up booking a lot of gigs with friends, Billy. Because I like playing gigs with friends. I like having a good night. I like, to me, a good gig is also a good social event.
For sure.
You know, and yeah, I try to book gigs with friends as much as I can. That's just important to me.
Yeah, you've built up these relationships with the promoters that you book through though as well, for sure. So yeah, that definitely comes from that as well, I think.
Yeah,
music scene is a friendly place at the end of the day. It can be intimidating, but it's still friendly. Everyone's there to enjoy the music, you know.
Exactly, yeah.
Don't be scared, listener.
Don't be scared. No, it is a friendly, nice place, the music scene. People generally nice, and a lot of the people who book me for some of these, you know, grassroots venues, I'm good friends with, and when I go to the gig, I'm not just excited to play, I'm excited to see them. You know, I like it when I get to know the people who run the venue. To me, when I play certain venues, and I'm not going to name names, but where you don't get to know the bar stuff, where you don't get to know the manager, you know, where you've booked through a private promoter and you show up to an empty room, you know, and you don't really know anyone's names, and it's not very personal. Even if it's a good venue, I don't want to go back. You know, I want to be in a good, positive environment, because that sets me up to play. If I walk in and, you know, the guy who runs the place is happy to see me, he's pouring me a pint, you know, you know, and you're having a good time, that's going to set you up for a gig. It's not always going to be like that, and I want to ask, because you brought up the Shepherd's Bush Empire gig,
okay,
which I have to say, I have to, you know, I'm not saying this just because I've had a few Guinnesses, but when I saw Billy play at Shepherd's Bush Empire in 2014, it was a really inspiring moment for me. I finished work, I jumped on the train up from Winchester to Shepherd's Bush, and I'd been to Shepherd's Bush just once before to see Patti Smith play in 2008, I think 2008 or 9. So I was 17, 18, and so this is my second time back, and just seeing you up on stage playing to a huge crowd at this massive venue was just inspiring. It's just inspiring, and as someone, you know, who aspires to do music on bigger stages and play bigger places, seeing my close personal friends up on stage playing this massive gig, it encouraged me. And so I'd say to anyone out there who's got friends who are maybe slightly further along in their music careers, to always support them, you know, but also, you know, you will get inspired, you know, as I did. So now I've said that, I want to ask about that gig. You mentioned a little bit earlier about how you got it, that it was through your drummer's husband's contact, you know, which seems a bit abstract, but a lot of time that's how you get gigs.
Yeah.
So so talk a little bit about the process before you got to the venue. So Rupert, he makes contact with them and asks them for the gig.
Yeah, pretty much.
He asks them for a gig, and then what happens after that before you get to the gig? What details are exchanged?
So, I mean, like he would have asked their tour management whether it would be cool, and like obviously they know Rupert and Donna quite well through the years, and I believe the quote was, for Donna anything, you know, something.
Oh wow, okay.
Yeah, literally. So like, so from there we got the gig, and then it was literally just a matter of I think they just basically the emails came through from the promoter of the venue, or for the night, and just outline, like, you know, all the details of the gig, like load-in time. It was a very early load-in time for, because there was obviously a lot of setup going into a big venue like that.
Yeah.
And yeah, for these sort of gigs, you have to bring all your own gear. You know, the smaller venues, you're going to be usually kit sharing, but for this one, it was obviously everyone had to bring their own gear. You had to load it on stage, get it all set up, do the sound check, and then we did the gig, and then you had to get it all off the stage quickly. So there was a middle act. I can't remember what the middle act was. I don't know if you can remember, but there wasn't. I was busy celebrating.
They had a song that was like, "This little girl is mine." Whoa,
it was some other American, wasn't it? I can't remember what it was, but
yeah, it was good.
It was a great night. It was a really I want to say, like, surreal experience. I guess. Yeah. I'm glad. I appreciate you saying it inspires you. You inspire me as well, Scott. You inspire me with your tenacity and all the songs you write. I love them. So
Thanks, bud.
So we're getting soppy in here. It's Scott's birthday, if you didn't know, listener. And
it is my birthday.
4th of July, Independence Day. Also Scott's birthday. So yeah, happy birthday to you, man.
Thanks, bud. Thanks. And I think we've gotten to an interesting topic actually about the difference between smaller gigs, and the bigger gigs like playing at Shepherd's Bush Empire, in the communication between you and the promoter.
Oh yeah.
So you're saying, with a smaller gig, as we know, there's what you call kit share. If you're not aware of it, usually the promoter will get the headline band. Say he's got 3 or 4 bands on a bill. The headline band usually brings the drum kit, so the drum kit doesn't mysteriously disappear halfway through the gig and they have to load in a new drum kit, because drums take a while to set up. Don't know if you know that. But so they'll have the headline bands provide the kit. And so they'll send that out in emails, and often the headline bands will also lend some of the guitar cabinets.
Yeah, that can happen as well.
That can happen. Yeah. Not always. Sometimes you can bring your own. They're a bit easier to set up. But that's the usual thing that happens at smaller gigs. There's more kit share going on, so there's less stage setup. So if you get a headline gig early on, expect to share your gear. Essentially, usually if you're a drummer, it's not your breakables. It's not your snare, your kick pedal, your cymbals.
No, it's just the bass drum and the toms.
Yeah, it's just the shells. It's just the shells
and the stands.
And the stands, yes. Shells and stands. And for the string section of the bands, you'll have to share cabinets, most likely. Some people share guitar heads as well, but a lot of people will come in and swap those out because, again, it's not very difficult. Now, when you get to a large gig like Shepherd's Bush, you're having to provide your entire whole kit.
Yeah, I mean,
whole back catalogue.
It's just, I mean, you got more room on the on these bigger stages. Even like a stage half the size of Shepherd's Bush is going to have room enough to have or both bands, or even 3 bands worth of equipment on stage. So you got more space to negotiate when it comes to that. However, there have been gigs where we've done gigs on the blues scene in particular, where you got these bigger bands, and it's at the end of the day, it's the headline band's prerogative whether they want to kit share or not on that scene, and some bands don't want to. So in that case, you then have to squeeze all your stuff in front of their stuff and literally have no room to perform. But you still perform. You get on with it, basically. That's what I'm trying to say. Like, sometimes you're going to run into that, and I think you just gotta just go with the flow. Be easygoing about it. I have seen, like, in the past, things get hairy in situations. I remember I did a gig once in Oxford where it wasn't even between the bands. It was actually between the headline band and the sound engineer. Because the sound engineer started taking mics from their headline drum kit to mic up our support band drum kit, which was on this tiny stage in front of their drum kit. There was no room. But so he's moving the mics, and I can't remember what they were arguing about, but the sound engineer made some sort of snarky comment, and the other band, one of the members, didn't like it, and it's like, it almost ended up in a bloody punch up. It was ridiculous. It was like so funny. But just don't like, you basically, with kit share, as Scott was saying, like, you're gonna have smaller venues, you're gonna kit share a lot more, and you gotta be prepared for that. But I think on the other end of the scale, you got to be prepared as well for when the headline band doesn't want to kit share, because that can happen.
Yeah,
and that's sorry, go on. That is, and that's their prerogative. That's their kit. If they don't want to, then at the gigs they're scared you're going to wreck it. Yeah. Well, that's it.
Yeah. So, I mean, you touched on, a blow up between the sound engineer and the headline band. Have you ever had the case where you've got an agreement between you and the headline band to do some kit share, and they have halfway through the night decided they don't want to share?
So, no, I'm trying to think. Maybe I've had a situation where I sometimes promote my own nights, as you know, Scott, because I've booked you.
Indeed.
I've had situations where I've told the headline band to bring a kit because they're the headline band, and obviously they're providing the kit for all the other bands on the night.
Yeah.
And then they've turned up without a kit.
Yeah.
So there was no drum kit for any of the bands, even though they said they were going to bring a kit. They just thought, oh, sorry, forgot to bring a kit.
Yeah.
I was like, what? What am I going to do? So I had to literally scramble, and luckily the venue had just random assortment of shells and stands. We made a makeshift kit from, and all of it was covered in cat's piss.
Literal cat's piss.
Literal cat's piss.
Not metaphorical cat's piss.
No, because it lived in the venue's like storage shed where the cat would get in, piss all over the equipment.
Yeah.
So the headline band as punishment had to use pissy drums, but so did their other bands. So it was a pissy night.
Wow. Okay. So I know the venue you're talking about is the one down the road.
Yes.
Which is interesting because they generously gave me my bass cabinet.
Now that wasn't covered in piss.
Okay, so I was just checking. I was trying to think for a second. Wait a sec. Did I get given this for free because it's covered in cat's piss?
It was all the drum stands.
Okay.
The drum stands were covered in piss, basically.
Oh, Christ.
So
Crikey. That wouldn't stand today in coronavirus, would it? Everything's got to be scrubbed down.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. But
yeah.
That was a bizarre situation.
Yeah.
I'm trying to think of any arguments. I mean, there's been cases where I remember in my very early days of gigging and joining a band. I joined my first band. Well, not my first band. I guess second band technically. But anyway, band I was in. We were doing gigs and that, and we came across a situation where the drummer was lending the kit to our drummer, and this particular drummer was very inexperienced, really, in terms of like how things worked. But the headline drummer had locks on his drums where you couldn't change the height of the drums.
How interesting!
And that's just standard practice. Like like he doesn't want anything adjusted. He wants it how he likes it.
Yeah.
And our drummer took great offence to this.
Yeah.
And he dubbed them wanker locks. So that was that really. From then on, like throughout it was always a joke. Oh, they got wanker locks. So yeah.
Wow, okay.
Yeah.
Right, that's getting its own chapter in the video. Wankerlocks. Do you have wankerlocks? If you do, get rid of them.
Well, don't get rid of them. They're for you to use.
I mean, I guess they're there for you to use, so maybe don't get rid of them. But you know, they're going to get called wankerlocks.
You're going to get called wankerlocks by inexperienced drummers, basically. I was a naive bass player once too, but I never had to deal with wankerlocks because that's a separate thing.
So we've talked a fair bit there about kit share, and this is something that will go into emails. If you're in a band, I've had similar emails. I'll tell you a funny story in a sec about when I played Manchester and the kit share that went on there. But first, just to say, kit share, it's going to be something that goes on. As a grassroots band, and it's a bit uncomfortable when you don't know the band, and especially if you're the drummer and you're very precious over your lovely kit, you know, and some guy you've never met is going to come and thwack them as hard as he can and possibly damage them.
That's the thing, they're expensive.
They are expensive. Yeah. They are expensive, but it's part of what the scene is. It just makes the night run smoothly. If you had to change the drum kit between each act, you know, the night would go on for 10 days.
It's it. It's a logistic nightmare. It is like, it is a balance, but also like, I think you just, at that particular level, you just kind of have to accept that that's how it is. Yeah. You know, like if you're a drummer that's worried about your kit getting smashed to pieces, you're probably not at the level you think you should be yet, and you kind of just need to get over it and get on with it, basically. And you can always, obviously, if they do break it, ask for them to pay for it. They probably won't have any money because they're struggling musicians.
That's the thing, you know, sort of like... putting your heart in your hands there, because there's no guarantee that they will pay up.
Yeah.
Most people in the music scene are really nice, as we've mentioned several times.
No one's like going, "Oh, I'm gonna smash this kit up."
Well, I don't know. I mean, like Keith Moon might have been reincarnated in the support band.
Yeah, but he was smashing his own kit.
That's true. Okay, so my story.
So
this is 5 years ago now. I've realised earlier. I was thinking back to when I released my first album, and I realised it's 5 years ago, half a decade ago. Can't believe it, but that's when it happened. And I went on tour with my backing band at the time, the Tokyo Sex Worlds, and so we played 10 nights in a row in March 2015, just as I released the album. And it was a very exciting tour. It's still to this day, it was a very big deal to me. We had a real laugh on the road, and a lot of things went wrong, and this included. So we're driving up to Manchester. We've just played sort of the east of England. We did Chelmsford, Ipswich, then Reading. We came and slept back in Winch for a night. Then we made our way up to Manchester, and we were playing at a place called the Thirsty Scholar. On St. Patrick's Day 2015.
Excellent.
I'd say it was the perfect day to be playing a place called the Thirsty Scholar. And so on our way up, we're at a service station, and I get a call from the promoter, and he says, "Hey Scott, a bit of a problem for tonight. The headline band has pulled out, and we now need you as the main support act to provide the drum kit." Now we're travelling up in a Vauxhall Astra.
Yeah.
The boot is full of guitars and amps and a couple of rucksacks. We're going up to Manchester for 2 nights, and provided that at each venue there's going to be
a kit,
we don't have room for a kit. We don't have a massive fan or anything. That's just a reality. We've got a Vauxhall Astra, and so I'm like, we don't have a drum kit. So what are we supposed to do? And he goes, "I don't know, do you want to cancel it?" I was like, we're halfway to Manchester. We're not cancelling the gig. We've got hotel rooms booked, so like, we'll figure it out. So we then had to drive to Manchester and figure out, what are we going to do about a drum kit? And so we don't know anyone in Manchester.
Exactly.
So it was problematic. So we went to music shops to look at what a cheap kit would be. And we were debating amongst ourselves, do we put in a bit of money each, buy a drum kit for tonight?
Oh my days. Take
it to the gig, and then bring it back the next day, and hopefully not make many scuff marks on it, and claim that, we changed our mind, we don't want the kit. We were debating that, and we just didn't think it would pass. And then we were like, then we'll have a huge drum kit that we now got to transport back down to Winchester. Exactly. It's not going to work.
No.
And so I lied, actually. We did know one person. Our bassist, Gareth, his dad lived in Oldham, just outside of Manchester. So Gareth was staying there. And so we didn't have any drums. All we had was a snare drum and a couple of cymbals as breakables. No stands, no nothing. Yeah. And so, we're eating a Nando's, and we're just like, what are we going to do? And Gareth's just like, my dad's a tiler, right? And I go, "That's great, Gareth, but what has that got to do with the drums?" And so Gareth goes, he's got these massive tiling buckets, and he goes, "When I was younger, I used to just bang around on them. They make a pretty cool sound." I was like, "You're suggesting that we take a bunch of tiling buckets to the Thirsty Scholar in Manchester, our Manchester debut, and we're going to play a bunch of tiling buckets?" And he goes, "Yeah, why not?" And I was like, "Well, I don't see any other option." And so we pack the car up with our guitars and our amps. We chuck the tiling buckets in. We got 2 tiling buckets, and Antosh, our drummer, is just rolling his eyes. He's just like, "I've got to play tiling buckets." And thankfully he brought a couple of beaters along, because we had a song in the set where he just sort of, tapped lightly on the cymbals. And so we got on stage, and we were actually pushed back really late. We were playing close to midnight, and Antosh gets on stage and starts sound checking, and these tiling buckets are flying all across the place. Every time he hits one, it's flying across the room, and he's so embarrassed, and I'm embarrassed for him, and I'm thinking, oh my word. And the promoter was just cool with it. We got on stage, and he goes, "Are those tiling buckets?" I was like, "Yeah," and he goes, "Fair enough." And Yeah, and so we were like, these buckets are just flying across the place. What do we do? So thankfully we brought gaffer tape on tour with us, because one thing I'd learned in my many years up to then was that gaffer tape solves everything. So we gaffer taped tiling buckets to the stage of the Thirsty Scholar, and Antosh had to adapt the drums for really complicated syncopated drum beats on these songs on tiling buckets and a snare, and he made it work, and it was one of the best nights of the tour.
That's crazy, man. I have so many questions.
Yeah, okay.
What were the other acts before you?
The other acts. Okay, actually, do you know what? That's interesting. One of the other acts had been on, like, Britain's Got Talent.
Right.
He was called Crazy Horse. He was like this. I mean, I don't watch Britain's Got Talent, you know, but he was this geezer, you know, with a ponytail who got up and sort of jumped about the place with an acoustic guitar. I was like, this guy's stolen my act. I was like, this is me in 50 years. So he got up and did that. I can't remember anyone else. He stood out. He was pretty good. He was fun. But that was kind of the night. We actually had our set cut in half, believe it or not.
Oh my days.
Yeah, because he kept trying to push back our sets. He wanted us to play it like past midnight, but like Gareth's dad needed to get to work in the morning, and he needed his tiling buckets.
Yeah.
So we had to call we had to just be like, right, we need to go on earlier. And he goes, you won't be the headline band anymore. I can't give you that many songs. I was like, dude, come on. But he just wouldn't have it. And so he cut a set in half. Instead of 6 songs, we played 3 songs. We travelled all the way to Manchester, went through all this stress to play 3 songs on tiling buckets, but we had a great night.
Yeah. There's definitely some lessons there,
yes.
I feel. Like, I'm guessing there wasn't a fee because of...
No.
Yeah.
It was more, that tour for me was before I really started charging money for gigs. I mean, we did get paid for a couple of places.
Yeah.
When we played Ipswich, we got paid over £100, which was great.
Yeah.
Because I was putting a lot of money out of my own pockets for travel lodges on that tour.
Yeah.
I mean, we didn't get paid for the majority of them. We broke even. Yeah. Actually, at the end of the day, we broke even. I don't know how we did it. We sold 100 CDs in 10 days.
That's good.
I don't know how we did that, but I just kept going around to people after we played and saying, hey, do you want to sign up to the mailing list? Hey, we got a CD, it's £5. And I managed to sell 100 of them. I don't know how I did that. It's just a hustle.
I think there's some, like, for listeners, right, who are starting out, they're like, learn from Scott's mistakes here. Like, obviously, like, you had a good time.
Yeah.
But I think the key thing here is there are going to be promoters out there that don't do their job properly.
Yes.
Like, realistically, he should have paid you for one.
Yes.
You should always be asking for some money. I feel like free gigs are.
That's another topic we'll get into.
We'll definitely get into that. But also, I think like the promoter has a responsibility to make sure the night goes smoothly. So, like, if the headline band's dropped out, that's disappointing. Obviously, if they were supposed to be providing a kit. But, like, he should also help find a kit. Like,
he should have. And it was my inexperience where I felt like it was my responsibility. And he was very forceful. Yeah. You know, so he was like, it's you need to find a kit. And
that's like
it was not.
No, it's like it's not me. It's we, mate.
Yeah, it's
like,
we.
You know what I mean? Like also like I don't know. He should and the fact that he was just prepared to cancel, obviously, that's the problem with like not having a fee or any contract because like he doesn't have any responsibility to you.
Yeah.
Like if you had that contract in place where he still has to pay you, then. You know, if he feels like the night needs to be cancelled, he's still got to pay you. Yeah. So these are things that I think it could be a whole other topic really in terms of like how you can protect yourself. From those sort of instances.
Okay, so here's a big question. Here's a question that a lot of people are probably going to be asking when it comes to gigs. Should I ask for money? So I'd like to hear your opinion on this first. So let's say, should you ask for money starting out first?
Well, I think the question, when you're emailing promoters and negotiating and whatnot for the gig, it's not so much about asking them for a fee, especially when you're starting out, because when you're starting out, you don't command a crowd of fans.
Yeah.
I think it's more about asking the right questions. And one of the questions that should come up, and you shouldn't be afraid to ask, is how does, I think usually the phrase is, how does the door work? And what's the split, for example? How do you run the show, sort of thing? Because different promoters are different ways. Some promoters just have a set fee they give every act. They give every act 50 quid maybe, or £50. Or they might have it so you sell X number of tickets, you then get X amount of money from that. So, and as long as you need to find out how they run it, and then you need to decide for yourself whether you're comfortable with that as an option. So, say they want you to sell a ridiculous number of tickets that you know you're not going to be able to sell, it's probably not a good gig for you to do. Like,
doing ticketed events starting out, it's tricky.
But even when you're not starting out, like if it's even when you're a bit more established, right? If a promoter wants you to sell 50 tickets, say, right? That's it could be the case. It could be 30 tickets, whatever it is, and you know it's going to be hard for you to sell those tickets because of the date, because of the number of gigs you've got before that could impact the sales for that gig. It's probably not a good idea to take on the gig. So you got to be careful out there. Really, it's always a balancing act in that regard. When you get a bit bigger, you can start, and you know you're going to be getting X number of people at every show you do, pretty much like an average. You can start, asking for a reasonable fee, whatever that might be. Like, it could be like as a solo artist, you're asking for £200 a gig, or as a band, you're asking for £400 a gig. So I think at that point you can sell yourself on the fact that you're bringing average number of people to your shows anywhere in the country almost, or anywhere in the areas that you play anyway. And then you can leverage that to ask for a fee, and then it's up to the promoter to decide whether they want to pay that or not. And if they don't, then it's a case of how low do you want to go with it. Because then you could negotiate back with them. So you say, oh, I want £400. They're like, oh, I'm not paying that. You're like, well, okay, I tell you what, like, discount for you £300. Or they might come back saying, look, I can only pay £300. Then it's up to you. Like, okay, we can do 300. Yeah. It's about you. Like, you don't want to set. If you get to that stage, you don't want to set your fee too high because then no one's going to book you. It is an element of negotiation, I think. Like, you kind of have to have that haggle in you to get a decent fee that works for everyone. But when you're starting out, it mainly is the door fees. It mainly is the a set small amount for covering petrol, or it is going to be you'll get a certain amount of pounds for every ticket you sell. After a certain amount of tickets, sort of thing.
So laying it down from what you just said, there's several different types of payment. So the one is, what's the rules of the door, as a common phrase, so certain amount of people pass through the door, and say that they're there to see you, you'll get money. So say you bring 10 people and at the door they go, who are you here to see? And you go, I'm here to see Billy Deadman and the Chump Monkeys, and you get 10 people there, means that you'll get a percentage of what they paid. So one person pays £5, you get £1 for every £5, and so then usually if you get 10 people through, then you get £10. It's not a lot, but the whole idea is the more people you bring, the more money you'll get. That's not a great way of doing it, but a lot of venues do that. And so if you don't bring a lot of people, you're not getting a lot of money. A lot of places will also add a caveat, and that they'll say, we'll pay you after the first 10 people that you bring. You encountered that one before?
Yeah, I think it's generally like, they obviously, any venue and promoter is going to have their own overheads, and they need to cover them to make the night a success. And it is a team effort. I think bands do lose sight of that sometimes. It is a team effort on everyone's part. To make sure the night is a success. And I mean, they put in these ticket deals really in a way to encourage the bands or the artists to bring more people. Like, you know, oh yeah, if we bring all these people, we're going to get more money.
Yeah.
Which is a way of doing it. And I think with saying it makes sense in a way. Obviously, you're going to have these other gigs though that are literally it's like, well, we're not going to pay you anything. It's a free night, free entry, free for everyone, you know. And it's up to you whether you want to take on those gigs. Generally, they're probably not going to be the best of gigs, really.
They're not going to be, what, the free ones? Or?
Yeah, I think you obviously sometimes you get it tends to be not always pubs. Pubs tend to pay, but obviously pubs tend to book covers bands and covers artists.
They do lean towards
that
covers part of the species. Yes.
Some pubs obviously do want original music on certain nights, right? But it tends to be that those original nights are also free entry because it's a pub.
Yeah.
So in those cases, they're not paying the bands, and it's up to the band whether they want to do those gigs really just for the experience, say, of doing the gig. And when you're starting out, I guess that can be quite valuable in a way to build up that experience of playing to an audience of maybe any size of whatever it could be at these 3 gigs. But you've also got to, I think, keep in mind your own value. What do you value your performance at, you know?
Yeah.
Because, like, getting paid nothing for all that effort isn't always, I don't think it's very fair, really. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
But it's generally it's down to the individual what they deem is valuable to them. Like, sometimes they just want to play a gig and they want to just, you know, they're not bothered about getting paid. Maybe they've already got another job on the side.
Yeah, I mean, there's this to say, I think there's a few different levels of musician, and I'm maybe generalising a bit when I say this, but there's the hobbyist level.
Definitely.
There's the level that you're getting in it to have fun, drink a few beers, chat with your mates, you know, during the other band sets, you know. There's that level, and maybe someone slips you 20 quid at the end of the night, and you go, oh, cheers, that paid for the beers tonight, you know. Or maybe you don't, and it doesn't bother you either way. Then it's like the next level where it's sort of between level 1 and level 3. So the next level
2.
Level 2. Level 2. And so level 2 is kind of just like you want to get paid a bit, you know. But like, well, you know,
it's not your main source of income.
It's not your main source of income. You know, it supplements your income. You know, it's not a big deal. You want to get paid for gigs, but it's not keeping the lights on. Then we get to level 3. Level 3, which is kind of my level. You know, I'm sort of maybe somewhere between level 2 and 3. Level 2.5. So level 3 is you literally do this for a living. And you need that money, so you're primarily booking gigs that pay. So it's important to know when you're out booking gigs which level you're at. Are you just doing this for fun? You don't need to ask for money. If you'd like to get some money for it, then you can. But that means you're more towards level 2. You know, level 2 is, you know, you have a job, you know, but you want to get paid for the effort you're putting in for playing the gigs. You're going out Friday and Saturday night every week, and it's primarily for fun, you know, or maybe with some ambition attached, but you want to get paid. Or there's level 3, where it's just like, I'm really good at what I do, so I do it professionally. I'm getting paid. Yeah,
exactly. I think you've hit the nail on the head there. I like these different levels. I think that makes sense. And I guess for me, I teach part-time. I teach music part-time. Not at the moment because of coronavirus, but you know, when a pandemic's not going on, I teach part-time, and the rest of the time I fill out by playing gigs and getting paid for them. And it's very important to me that I get paid for gigs. And there's very few gigs I do now that are not paid. You know, because I've several years experience, you know, I deserve to get paid for what I do, you know. If you're at level 3, or even, as you say, level 2.5, it essentially is your career. Like, why wouldn't you get paid? Like, you should be getting paid for that, you know.
Yeah, so we talked about obviously getting paid for the door, you know, and then there's also the flat fee.
Yeah.
You know, so the flat fee is, you know, what do they just generally offer to bands? So there's a local venue that we've both played at and that you've booked gigs for, and they generally offer about £50 for a band.
Yeah, I mean, it depends on the venue, but yeah.
It depends on the venue, but the venue that, you know, you book gigs for and that we've played at a lot, you know, generally it's around £50, isn't it?
Yes.
You know, and we played there a lot, and a lot of the time it's £50, isn't it?
A lot of that, I mean, that basically comes down to the budget of what the pub can do for the night, really. Yeah. They're obviously booking bands that are much bigger for other nights of the month. And a lot of their entertainment budget will go on those. So they have these other nights where they have a smaller budget. And so essentially is just like, you know, dividing that amount between the acts that are booked. So yeah, I imagine that's the same for a lot of pubs around the country, really, and venues across the world, you know. So it depends on what the venue can afford and how much they're raking, like how much are they making in terms of money from drink sales, because it's free entry at these places, unless it's a ticketed night, which it usually isn't. So how much are they making that they can then reinvest into the entertainment per week, you know? So that's where it comes down to, really.
It comes down to. So have you ever been offered a flat fee from a venue for playing and said...
Yeah, definitely.
Said no, actually, we want more?
I don't think I have, no. No, I feel like most times, I mean, for myself, I have a day job, so I guess you would put me... Not so, I'm probably around 2.5 in that I would love to be 3. Yeah. But I have, I've always had a day job, really. Just not, I guess, fall back on, but also just to pay the bills, you know.
It's very hard to be free. I tried to be free for several months.
Yeah.
And it was very hard.
Yeah, it's tough out there. So, I mean, there are other ways of making money as a musician, but that's a whole other topic, really.
That's a whole other podcast.
That's a whole other episode.
Yeah, I look forward to that episode.
Yeah, in terms of the gigs and that, though, I think like we have done we've done gigs in London which was a free entry gig, actually. And that offered a flat fee of like £50, I think it was. Yeah. For the band, and you know, we were like, okay, we want to do this gig in London. It was a cool venue, and usually did have a good crowd there, and I don't think we ever played there. It didn't have a good crowd. Because it was free, and like it was also a popular place in North London for people to go to. So it made sense for us to do the gig, get that, get in front of that crowd, still get paid enough money for the cars to get there, and then your other source of income is also obviously going to be your merch sales, if you're selling any merch at your gigs. And I feel like that's also another big topic.
It's another big topic. We're gonna look forward to that one.
Yeah, we're gonna have to get onto that as well. But I think that is definitely the flat fee. Again, it comes down to what you as an artist or musician or band think you are comfortable with doing. Like, you know, some people, if you feel like you deserve more, you can ask for more. But generally, they probably won't pay it.
Yeah.
I mean, they might.
Okay.
It's.
Yeah.
I'm going around in circles a bit here.
But there's no worries. Okay, so we got onto the third one. So we've got money from the door. Yes. We've got the flat fee, and you can interrupt and tell me if I'm missing out one. But I think there's one more where the venue will ask you what you charge for an hour, half an hour of music. Have you had that before?
No, I think that's definitely more of a solo artist type thing, I guess, because in the main, I think this, as a band, as I've always played in bands, being a bass player, it's always been half-hour sets, 45-minute sets, maybe hour sets, or 2 45-minute sets. Especially in the blues scene.
When you get those pub circumstances, they like those 2 45s.
Yeah, because they like their little gap for people to get a drink in, sort of thing. I've always found that gap to be a bit of a buzzkill for myself, really.
Yeah,
you're
I do too.
You're just getting into the gig, and then suddenly you got to stop, and then wait around 15 minutes, and then do it again.
I got a good story there. I'll insert later, but go on.
I mean, I get it. Like you want punters to have a chance to get the drinks in. So
he says, "Crack in a Guinness."
I
Billy,
get it.
I'll have another Guinness, Deadman.
Yeah, I get it. But coming from the musician standpoint, it does. I always don't like it because then you have to get back into it with another opening song of another set.
Yeah.
When you've already done the opening song of the night, and you kind of like you have to build it up again. It's weird. Yeah. But at the end of the day, once you get back into it, you're back into it. It's fine. But
Yeah, so I guess for me, being a solo act, I get asked this question a lot. Because I think there's different the kind of gigs I play end up being a bit different, because I ride that line between being quite raucous and quite quiet. As an acoustic act, I want to play the really raucous gigs where I'm opening for bands and getting people pumped up.
Yeah.
But sometimes I'll get asked to play at a wine bar, and so I'm like, well, I'm playing a wine bar. I'm not going to be playing Born to Be Wild, I'm going to be playing Ain't No Sunshine, like Bill Withers, So you got to
Hotel California.
Oh, no. Oh, man, I cannot tell you how much I won't get into my dislike of the Eagles. I know a lot of people listening are probably big fans of the Eagles, but I can't do it. I'm sorry. I'm like, literally, my favourite movie is The Big Lebowski, and Jeff Lebowski is not an Eagles fan, and I'm with him on that. Anyway, what I'm saying is that, as an acoustic act, I end up playing different context. Sometimes small cafes, sometimes music venues, sometimes pubs, all these things in between. And for the most part, it is like playing normal gigs where you email a place, you say, hey, my name's Scott, I'm an acoustic solo artist, I'm a bit more energetic than your usual acoustic act, I go really well before bands, but I can do a solo acoustic slot as a headline as well. Here's a link to my music, I'm from so-and-so, I can bring X amount of people, I hope to hear back from you soon, cheers, Sco. And so, I send out those emails, and then they'll go, okay, cool, this is what we do, this is a flat fee, la-di-da, if they get back to you. But then sometimes they'll get back to you and go, great, how much do you charge for a set? Or sometimes it's a cold email. I've never heard from them before, and they email me and go, hey, I saw you at so-and-so, how much would you charge for 2 45-minute sets?
Yeah.
Now, I won't tell this full story, but last year I played at a distillery, like a beer distillery, just outside of Poole, I think it was. It was nice. I had to drive through the entire New Forest to get there. It was in the outskirts. Yeah, Dorset. It was Dorset.
Yeah.
In just Wilmslow or something like that.
Right.
Sorry if you live there and I butchered the town's name, but it was around that area, the Bournemouth area, and I got asked to play a distillery where they made beer and they made ale, and it was delicious. And so when I was having the preliminary conversations on Instagram direct messages, which is how I do a lot of gigs now, on top of Facebook, but when they were asking me to play the gig, they were like, right, we want you to play 2 45-minute long sets, we'll pay you X amount, plus we'll give you as much beer as you can fill your car with. Now, this is a proper beer distillery, and everything I'm reading on the website says this is the best beer in the country, and so I'm thinking, is it worth it just for this gig? Like, I'm okay with money at the moment. Could I play for X amount plus as much beer as I can fit in my car?
Yes, you can.
And part of me is just like, should I do it? But I was like, nah, I need to stick to my guns here. And I said, actually, I will. This is how much I will play for. And if you'd like to give me some beer at the end of the night, I'd be incredibly thankful. Thank you. And they actually went, yeah, okay. So I had to negotiate there, and I left the night with a massive jug of beer, which I will tell you was delicious. And so
it's essentially it's knowing your worth.
Yeah.
What do you value your time and your ability as?
Yeah.
And sticking to it.
And you're going to be honest with yourself. You know, if you just started out and you don't feel you're that good, you know, I mean, then maybe you're not that good, you know. But get other people's opinions first, you know.
Exactly.
And if you think, actually, I'm really good, you know, and then you should charge a bit, you know. I think, you know, unless you don't care about money and you're just in it to play, because these places are incredibly happy to not pay you.
Oh, exactly.
Like, they will not bring up money if they can, you know, because they want to keep the money.
Yeah.
They want you to not mention the money, you know, and it's kind of almost a subconscious groan sometimes when you bring up money. I don't know if you find that.
I think so. I mean, the thing is though, like, I mean, being doing like the promoting side of things.
Yeah.
It's going to come eventually. Like, they're going to ask. So, like,
yeah,
you know, usually I hit it off. I'll like you say, like, I'll message someone and say it's gonna be this much money, sort of thing. But but
for me, you know, just to round up this section, for me, I charge £50 per half an hour when given the opportunity to state my claim, you know, my worth. You know, because I'll end up playing a lot of pub venues, and so I'll do a mix of originals and covers. And so, you know, they'll ask for 2 45-minute sets, and so that equals out to what, £150. Not a bad night's, you know, pay, you know. Sometimes they'll ask for 2 hours, and so that's 200.
Yeah.
And then I've done the rare gig where I play for 3 hours straight with no breaks.
That's ridiculous.
I did that at the end of last year. I did it, and do you know what, Billy? I showed up. I had to provide the PA kit. I showed up without a microphone.
Oh.
I was peeing myself. I was just like, I showed up to this gig on the outskirts of Southampton without a microphone.
Oh.
What do I do? Thankfully, they had like a bingo night, so they had a wireless microphone that I used for the entire gig that kept phasing in and out. It was an awkward gig. As I said, I played for like 3 hours straight.
Wow.
It was exhausting.
Yeah.
And at the end, they kept asking for more, and I then had an hour and a half drive back home. So,
oh man,
that's the reality of, you know, some solo gigs. You know, that can happen. Do you know what was the really annoying thing?
Yeah.
At the end of the night, they said, you could have had a break.
Yeah.
I was like, you didn't. You said, I want you to play for 3 hours straight. You never said, I'll have a break in between. So like, that's the contract, isn't it?
Yeah.
You know, so yeah.
I reckon you should have said to them when they offered you the gig, "Can I have a break?" But I know you. You're like, yeah, I can do 3 hours.
Yeah. There's like this macho thing that comes into it. Like, yeah, I can do it. Like, step back. I'm gonna play for 3 hours straight. My fingers will be bleeding.
I'm gonna have the vindaloo.
Yeah. Yeah, that's me. I do my gigs like I do my curry.
Exactly.
So there's a lot of stuff there. So I feel we've covered a lot.
We have.
In today's podcast. I think we've really pierced the veil. So just to do a little summary, to wrap up, a little conclusion.
Conclude.
You know, if you're gonna book a gig. Right, if you're going to book a gig, it's good to do some research. You know, if you're coming in at it cold, you know, go onto Google, type in gigs in my local area, and find some music venues that do music. Sometimes it'll be a music venue specifically built for it, or sometimes it'll be a pub that does music. Either way, they're both cool and they're both worth experiencing. A pub gig can be different to a gig at a music venue. The type of people you get there, plus the type of, you know, building that it is, the type of stage that it is, you know. So do your research. Type into Google, find out there, or go on Facebook or go on Instagram, wherever it is that you roam, and find places to play. And then send them an email, send them a message saying, hey, I'm so-and-so, I'm from this area, you know, this is my act, this is the kind of music that I play, I can bring X amount of people, here's a video of me playing. Video's better than audio, by the way. Don't write that, that's just advice. And I'd love to play at your venue. I hope to hear back from you soon. And there you go. And that should be like, that's a good introductory email. And from there, you go on. Now, we've covered kit share. That's really important to know that when you play these gigs, often you'll be sharing the night with other musicians. And if you're a headline act, then you're going to have to share your drum shells and stands with the other acts, and sometimes your guitar cabinets or your combo amps. That can happen. If you're looking to get paid for music, you need to be good. I think we've covered that. You need to be good, and you need to be confident enough in that fact to ask for money. Some places will give you a cut of the door, so how much money they're making off tickets of people coming in through the door. Some places will offer a flat fee to you. And in my case, as a solo act, sometimes I get asked how much I charge per length of time. I charge £50 per half an hour. I think that's fair because I'm providing good entertainment, I believe. So you need to figure that out for yourself. Am I going to charge, £1 a minute? Some places will pay you like that. I've played sets that were exactly 52 minutes long and I got paid £52.
Wow.
Weird things like this can happen. Okay, so hopefully this has been really informative. This has been our first podcast. I've been Scott Freeman, and with me as always is Billy drinking his Guinness, Deadman. Yeah, it's been fun, Billy. You enjoyed it today?
I have. I feel like we are the weekend rock stars.
We are the weekend rock stars.
Yeah.
Okay.
I fully feel it.
I'm fully feeling it as well. Cool. So, each week, what we want to do is we want to answer some questions that you guys have. Is there anything that's come up in today's podcast that has inspired a question of some sort? Is there anything we haven't covered that you'd like to know about? Leave us a question, and at the end of next week's podcast, we will answer that question for you and hopefully go into some details on it.
Where can they send that question, Scott?
So you can, if you're listening to this on YouTube, you can leave the comment down in the comment section, or you can send your question to scottfreemanmusic@gmail.com. That's scottfreemanmusic@gmail.com. Send your questions along, and me and Billy will answer it next time. But for now, this as the Weekend Rockstar signing off. I'm Scott Freeman.
And I'm Billy Deadman.
And we're the Weekend Rockstars.